Please become a Patreon and support the show. Merci.
And now our host, Stephen Lee Morris.
Matt Domenico grew up in Orange County. He served a tour of duty with the US Marines in Afghanistan, and upon his return, he studied theater in New York, where he met San Francisco-based Katherine Duff. After graduating from college, they together formed a civilian military theater company called the Foxhole Theater Company, which has just closed its latest production called The Ninth Door. They're here today to discuss the intersections of theater, politics, the military, and what happened in Afghanistan. So welcome to Animal Farm.
Thank you so much for having us.
Mm-hmm. So you jointly run a theater called the Foxhole Theater Company. You are both Californians. You were both born in California in different parts of the state, and yet you did not meet in California. You met in college in New York. Is that correct? Were you both studying the same things or same thing? Or
More or less. Matthew majored in acting, and then I majored in acting and playwriting with a minor in art history. So we were in the same program with the acting, and we actually met during a production of Arthur Miller's A View from a Bridge. I was doing my extra credit as a costumer, and he was in the piece, and I costumed him, and that's how we met.
Yeah, I always got to the theater early. I'm just like that as an actor. And
who did you play in A View from the Bridge?
Oh, I was I was Eddie's best friend. I forget the guy's name. I had like maybe a handful of lines, but I was a lot in the beginning, in the middle, and then I show up at the end to give him like a dirty look. But I was always there early, no matter what, just in case. Who knows what might happen?
I was there.
It's theater.
So we met in like the dressing room when I was steaming the clothes, and he was preparing, and then we talked off stage because he had you had like 30 minutes of not being on stage.
Yeah.
And then we started talking, and I actually didn't know that he was a veteran right away. He sort of introduced me with like his Italian heritage, actually. It was like talking about his family during like the various wars and stuff. And I was intrigued. And then a couple of days later, I found out about his military service as well.
So you had been in Afghanistan by the time you met.
Yeah,
you were already a veteran. Yeah.
Yeah, I was already a veteran at that point. Yeah.
How did you get into the service, and why?
It's a military tradition in my family. My grandfather ran the underground resistance in northern Italy during World War II.
That's what you opened with me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm an incredibly awkward, weird person. I don't know why I do that, but yeah. And then after
it's a great opening line. It's a great
yeah.
And then yeah,
on me.
Yeah. Well, and then after World War II with Tito. They were doing a lot of ethnic cleansings in northern Italy, and then my grandfather, he re-upped the underground resistance, and then they found him. So he got sent. So he basically ran away from the communists with nothing but his pants on, and America was the only people that would accept us. And I come from a very old school Italian patriarchy family. We have a papa. It doesn't make sense to any probably other like American
it's like the
families.
Godfather. That's the easiest way to explain it.
It's basically like like papa is
is the Godfather
without the mob. And so like when and it's very weird, like when the papa says something, it's like that's going to be forever. Like it's just it happens, and you can tell when it happens because it's always done in speech tone, and out of respect for America taking us in when nobody else would. Every boy in my family joins the military. So yeah, my dad did it, I did it, and I have a feeling
our children will not.
It's probably going to end with me. Well, it's so old school.
It's
hard to explain to people about it, let alone like practical application.
The thing about tradition is that it's by definition old school. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And did you immediately got stationed in Afghanistan? You had basic training. You joined the Marines, not the Army, correct?
Yeah, I was in the Marines. Yeah. So I got stationed out with 2-3 Fox Company out in Hawaii. Um, was always working, always training. And then I was in the surge of '09. And then when I went over there, I was, so yeah, surge of '09, it was a really rough time. It was really bad. We all knew something crazy was about to go down because when we showed up to Camp Leatherneck, it was like an armada was happening. I saw Scottish Marines, I saw Australian Marines, English Marines. Like you see all these military units walking around with different covers on, and I was like, oh my god, like I think something really big is about to happen. And that's when we found out. And I was in FOB. I was in Gulistan Mountains, and then I got combat replaced to FOB Bakwa, and then I patrolled every day. 515, dubbed by CNN in 2009 as the world's most dangerous road. It was just basically, it was a giant minefield, and we had to go out there every day. And then after that deployment, I went to Marja, which was another can of worms / Pandora's box. So yeah, it was a definitely interesting 2 deployments.
I'm just curious about your morale and your sense of purpose when you're there. I mean, being overseas in a military installation is, nobody assumes that's going to be easy. Did your sense that the purpose was worthy, did it sustain throughout, or did that sense kind of shift, both you personally and perhaps among your squad?
Oh yeah, no, it was immediate. Like, oh yeah, no, I said all the time, I went to Afghanistan with so many questions to find answers. I came back with more questions, no answers. Immediately I knew that this was not going to be a small war. If we wanted to do what we actually wanted to do over there, it would be a generational war. And it's not just going to be 2 decades. It would have to be 4 to 5 generations going over there to actually implement democracy in the Middle East. And and seeing support back home, it was not good at that time. And and you're talking to people who have never left their villages. Like a lot of these people live in the medieval times, and they don't leave their village boundaries. So you're trying to talk to them about the world and people back home, and the world is so small to them.
I understood biblical.
Yeah, biblical. Like, so yeah. So you're trying to deal with trying to get support for them, and that was probably the hard part. It was going to villages that would play both sides. Of course. Yes. Yeah, and I remember at the very end on my second deployment, there was a village elder. He basically told us that your general is on the radio every day saying that you are going to leave, referring to President Obama, that you're going to leave. Once you leave, they will be here. I have to play both sides. Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh my God, this is going to end horribly. And everybody in the military saw the writing on the wall. Some didn't want to admit it. I was one of the ones that I knew it was going to happen, but I'm more of an optimist. But I always hope for the best, no matter what the outcome is. It's a very Marine thing where it's like, yeah, the odds are really stacked against us, but don't worry, we'll get it done. You just have that, that spirit de corps running through you, and it was rather unfortunate the whole ending.
Yes. Well, the Russians had been in there forever, and they absolutely got massacred.
Yeah. And, I mean, like when it comes to the English wanted their resources. The Russians, they wanted to extend the Iron Curtain down into Asia. And I think that's what the saddest part is about us going to Afghanistan. We went with hearts and minds. And there were people there that actually understood what democracy was and what was at stake. That, oh my God, I could have my daughter go to school. Like she doesn't have to stop at the age of 5 and then start getting ready to become a wife. My kid could potentially not be a farmer one day. And we would go to all these villages, and many of them knew what was at stake. And I think those are the people that I think about in reflection now. It's the people that did understand what we were trying to do with the hearts and minds. And I find it shocking that like, policymakers, like when it comes to veterans, it's like, yeah, we did hearts and minds. You're now shocked that the veteran community has a heart and mind for these people. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's so interesting. And what was the state of affairs when you left the military to go? I guess, did you leave the military to go to college?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah. No, I at the time that I left, it was actually great. I mean, I don't know what happened. Like I say that all the time. Like we pushed the Taliban to the Pakistan border.
That's right.
Iraq,
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
Iraq was not ISIS like run yet, so it was like everything was totally fine when I left, and can't wait for the documentaries and books to come out.
do you think, this is a tricky question, but do you think the American presence was in any part responsible for things being kind of okay at the time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why things fell apart so quickly when we left. They were all at the Tajikistan, Pakistan borders, just waiting for our presence to leave, because they knew that a lot of it's really funny. Like we kind of set up the problem for ourselves. Like when we did the elections, back home, people really wanted to make sure that we wouldn't have a hand in it, because we don't want to come off like we're making a puppet government, right? But at the same time, too, you have a lot of corrupted leaders getting put into position. So, and they knew that all these leaders were corrupt and they weren't going to be sending supplies. And that's another thing that really angered me when everything was falling.
You meaning they being the English?
They meaning like people that were being very critical of the Afghanistan government, when like, why are they not fighting back harder? When in fact, oh no, like I have a lot of friends that are still very connected and in the loop on things. And you had so many supply routes getting sent out to stations, and they're bringing them, potatoes covered in mold, rusted ammunition, and everybody's standing around there at an AMP outpost being like, how am I supposed to eat this? How am I supposed to shoot with this? Like, and then there's that famous special forces Afghan unit that went from province to province to province, holding back what they could so that way civilians could get to Kabul. So there was a lot of heroism that did happen in that day. And when people say that, the Afghan military did not fight back, like you got to talk to boots on deck about that one, because there was a lot of guys that were doing it for their country out there.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. So you come home and you join a theater department at a fairly small college. What was in your head?
Yeah, I felt
Katherine, we will get to you, I promise.
Oh no, I love hearing these stories, and Matthew has a very interesting military career, so I love hearing it too.
Yeah, no, I fell into acting. Like I explain this to my military friends all the time, and maybe it's because they're not part of the artistic route that I'm on right now, that they may not get it, but I always tell them, like, I'm a trash bag floating in the wind, and I just go where the wind takes me. And I just like landed in the theater. At my JC, and my teacher was like, yeah, you're really talented, and I think you have something here. Why don't you try for this school out in New York City? And then I got in, and I just kept on saying yes to everything. It's like a big game of improv with me for a theater. Yes and.
And the school is Marymount Manhattan College.
Yeah, Marymount Manhattan College. Yes.
Yeah. And there you met Katherine, who was, you said you were a costumer? You performed as a costumer, although that you were in there as an acting person, correct?
Yeah, it was my extra credit. And if you're a theater major, you have to do extra credit as like a costumer or do a sound class or something like that. And I was doing costuming as my extra credit. But I majored in acting, playwriting, and then I minored in art history, and I was in the honors program. And I did a lot at the school, because college, I feel, is really what you make of it. And yes. I wanted to do as much as possible, and do as well as possible, and learn as much as I could.
And you went there from San Francisco.
Yeah, that's correct. I went to University High School in San Francisco. For college, I went to a Catholic all-girls school for lower form, and got a very good education. Very grateful to my parents for that. And then I went to New York from San Francisco after I took a semester off.
And Matt, your California heritage is you said Huntington Beach, is that correct?
Yeah, from Huntington Beach, HB. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're an Orange County guy. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then so you meet, and something, obviously there's a meeting of the minds and the heart there. And then at what point did you decide, A, we've got to form a theater company together, and B, it should link the civilians with veterans?
Yeah. So I was the way
It's kind of a two-part.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-part. Like the way I came up with it in the beginning was I was taking a class at Marymount called Arts and Social Change, and that's where like the original seed of thought came from. And we talked about different communities bringing their voice to the stage, and I started like, oh, there must be veteran theater companies out there, and I was looking at them, and I mean there are veteran theater companies, but they'll do like really obscure like work where it's kind of related to veterans, and it's like if you look at it and you tilt your head and you squint, and it's like, yeah, I could see that kind of being related to veterans, or it's Greek plays. There's nobody doing original work talking about the current veteran voice. And I was like, okay. So and then I was it was probably one of the worst weeks at my school. I got a message that one of our guys in my unit committed suicide. And then photos started circulating on the internet of one of our bases being overrun by ISIS with the flags and everything. And a lot of these guys were texting and talking and saying like, does anybody even know what we were doing over there? Does anybody even care?
Yes.
And then I was walking through the halls of Marymount, and it just hit me. And I was like, I know what's going to fix all this shit. A theater company.
And then in terms of and then in terms of the veteran civilian aspect, once we met, it took maybe a couple months, and then Matthew became aware of my writing and started reading the writing that I was doing. And then I started reading the writing that he was doing. And it was really, so I would say the veteran civilian aspect and why we came together on it was Matthew told a couple people about the theater company and was kind of shot down a little bit. But when he came to me about it, I was like, this is a really great idea. And really our union as writers really formed like the veteran civilian theater company, like our own union.
What were their reservations? I can imagine, I'm sorry, but maybe it's the overweening optimism that I have, but I can't imagine what the objections would be to this.
I mean, it follows under the, the stereotype of like being a veteran, like, oh, you're just going to put conservative propaganda out there, or this is a very niche community that doesn't really go to the theater. I don't think you're going to be really I don't think it's you should put your energy into this. You should probably go do something else. I got many lefts and rights with it. And I just, that just motivated me even more. And it's like just because like I'm from Orange County, I was in the military, bro, I'm liberal as hell. Like it was like, but you look at that and you see that, and it's like, okay, well, that's a problem that needs to get fixed and addressed, because there's so many different people and types of people that go into the military, and every one of them has their
really everyone is represented, like anyone in this country, like all groups are represented in the military in some way, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, it's a very good point.
And I would say also that like we going off the political thing, like that is one of our challenges is especially now veterans are kind of in certain circles are equated with Trumpism, very
QAnon,
far right groups. And I mean, one of the things that drew me in as a writer at first was just these stakes. You can't get higher stakes, honestly, as someone who's writing something, you can't get higher stakes than veterans and military. It was that, and it was also the humanism. So we very much veer away from politics with our material because it distracts from the real issues that are happening with vets, the suicides, the World War II veterans dying in waiting rooms at VAs. Like these are issues that are humanist issues, and to get into the politics, it makes certain audience members lack sympathy depending on what side you're on, and we're really coming at it from an overall universal humanistic
the politics seems to be just the wedge of our divide, our national divide right now. It's like the tip of the spear. That's what just drives us apart, because we're really don't seem to be capable anymore of listening to an alternative point of view and treating it with any kind of empathy.
Oh yeah, and when you take what is it, the politics out of it, and you just show the humanity of it, like this person had a bad experience. Yeah, like it's amazing. Like in our audiences, it's really like wonderful to see. Like it's very typical. Like I know that guy in the front row, like he's most likely a conservative person, and then this person over here is I'm pretty sure they're liberals. Yeah. They're liberal too, and then like that is like half of our audience, and we don't bring any politics up, and you can see them.
They can all enjoy it together.
Yeah, I mean that they're all agreeing on the same thing. So I don't know if maybe that is the future of writing.
It's very interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting. Where I just wanted to backtrack
slightly
and talk about the suicide of your friend, of your comrade. Yeah. When chronologically was that in terms of our engagement in Afghanistan?
Well, that must have been around 2016, 2017, around that time.
So it was around the time Trump was a new president or running for president, and he already said, I'm going to end these, quote, endless pointless wars. And the irony is that Biden made absolutely good on that promise of the former president, which is, and led to such tragic consequences. So you formed, you're now out of college when you formed the Foxhole, or you were still in college?
Yeah, we were out of college. I did a year of hanging out in New York City, trying to make it just as an actor. I got an off-Broadway show, and then I plateaued, and I figured, you know what, like I have a really good feeling that my work is not going to, it's not going to happen here. So Katherine already wanted to move to LA. She was working on her last year. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to move out to Los Angeles. I'll set up the apartment. I'll find everything. So that way, when you move here, you can just go, burn rubber on the pavement. Just go as fast as you can.
I left the day after graduation to LA. And then we started our first play because we were writing Truthful Smoke, Run Motherfucker Run is the play. And we started writing that. I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years before we actually put it on. And then so we were working remotely. So I was still in school. And then
so you were working on it right around the time of the suicide. That would have been, if it's 2 years before, you put the play on in 2018, that's correct?
2018, yeah, that's right.
So that means you started writing around 2016, which is when you described this tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, I got to a point where, 22 veterans commit suicide a day. And that's a very known statistic. It's been around since, I believe, that famous research paper came out. I think it was 2006, and that's over 8,000 people, 8,000. And I remember when I first got out of the military, there were so many Iraq and Afghan veterans, and now there's not many of us left. And like
more of your guys died here than over there.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah.
So we have, there is a pandemic in the veteran community. It's been there for a very long time. So, and you see a lot of veterans right now opening up their own nonprofits too, because basically the collective hive mind is that, if the government can't do anything at this point, if policymakers can't do anything at this point, we're going to do it on our own. And it was around that time that I also got the inspiration to come at it from the artistic approach.
You opened that first place in the Hollywood Fringe, correct? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And how did that go? That was 2018. Well. 2018, was it? Let's see. No, it was pre-pandemic. So it was
pre-pandemic. Yeah. It went very well. We were very happy with the response to Truthful Smoke because, we were a little bit nervous. It's a very brutal play. And we go into some very in-depth real life stories of Matthew's that we put into the play, that it actually took a lot for him to tell me, just as his partner, these stories. And then I heard them and I said, oh my God, we need to put these into the play. These are, without sounding callous, these are very convincing, and they will really make people sit up and listen.
Well, not only that too, the whole point of the play is we were really trying to go after a certain type of veteran within the veteran community. I call them Adams.
The character.
Yeah, the character, but I specifically call them Adams, where sometimes when people leave the military, you always get that one guy or two guys in every unit that completely cuts off everyone. And they basically go into like hermit mode, and they just don't talk to anybody. They don't reach out for help, but everything about them, and you hear rumors about where their life is going, and everything about what they're doing is a cry for help. So we wanted to try and create that type of going after that specific person within the veteran community, but also bringing up, because the Truthful Smoke is about a returning war veteran who wants to talk to his girlfriend, but he can't. So he talks to his own PTSD to find the answers to his questions. So we physicalizing PTSD on stage, and like what does PTSD actually want from you? So exploring that, like what is the whole point of that like person? Like what is their like want, their drive?
And it took a while for us to actually get there. Like we originally had them 2 actual people on stage, and then we decided one of them wasn't really there. So it took a couple months to like fully get to that idea. And it was if I do say so myself, it was a very successful idea. We did very well at Fringe. We won a couple of awards. We were extended. And then we took the play to Golden West College to perform it for the Veterans Association there, which was a very powerful experience for us. The men and women who were there were very touched by the piece. And then we last place we took Twistpole was at Maverick Theater in Fullerton,
right?
Which was another very successful run.
Yeah, that was like the place that we got our first feature. Really trying like getting first exposure really for the theater company, and actually it cemented the theater company, because we were still like, are people really interested in this? But we have a really growing fan base of people that really believe in the work, and they believe in the idea of what Foxhole Theater Company is, and
we recently went nonprofit 501(c)(3). Right. So that was this year. We finally went nonprofit.
Well, I think it resonates when people understand that your core purpose, your motives of creation, is not simply to draw attention to yourself, which is often the motive of creation of theater. That there is a larger purpose. And then we come to the ninth door, which is people have died. Your characters are dead. Is that correct? And they're in a kind of purgatory.
Yes.
And that is still running through.
Last show is tonight, actually, and we are sold out, unfortunately, but that is tonight, the 29th.
What is it? Yeah, we've been sold out for the last 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
Last 2 weeks, actually.
It's gone over very well, and in terms of the whole process, it's been a very interesting process. We actually, the idea for Ninth Door came when we were doing Truthful Smoke at Maverick Theater, and 2 of Matthew's old squad members that he hadn't seen in 8 years came to surprise him, and they surprised him at the end of the show. It was very emotional, and there's a small bar at the Maverick Theater, and I was watching him and his 2 squad members that I'd never met before. It was all way before me, and they were all hunched together, like illuminated by candlelight. It was very cinematic, and they all had a KIA bracelet on, which is, commemorating members of their squad that had died in Afghanistan. And I just saw that, and I was like, wow, the brotherhood, like, it lasts after death. Their bonds with these dead men are just as strong as the bonds with each other, their families. It was a very interesting thing that I witnessed. And so then we made this sort of purgatory-esque situation with all of these men. And there's, of course, a linchpin at the end of a real life story. And so we get into all of that in the piece. And we wrote it in 2018, and then
we originally
2019. I'm sorry, it was 2019.
Yeah.
For release in 2020, pandemic happened, so it was obviously changed to this year, and then it coincided with the pullout of Afghanistan, which was just very coincidental.
Any thoughts for upcoming projects at this point, or maybe just to get some sleep?
Maybe for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be having a play in March 2020. We'll be doing hopefully a
summer as well.
And then we're going to be doing a new Foxhole, most likely in
the fall.
The fall of 2022.
Do any of these plays have names yet, or are they still in development? So in development that working title is the best you can do.
Well, yeah,
we will probably be doing Truthful Smoke again in March. That's most likely.
Okay.
We're gonna bring that back. Still touring basically. So we'll probably be touring that in March, and then we also write. I write a lot of comedy, and the Foxhole Theater Company, as a collective that we are, we span many genres. We do film, theater, podcasting, etc. So all forms of media. And we also don't just do military, but we always employ veterans. So in the summertime, we'll probably do a non-military comedy. And through that, we will employ veterans and civilians together, because we also believe very strongly in the importance of a rehearsal process and how connected people can get during a rehearsal process. So having veteran and civilians working together throughout that rehearsal process also is very helpful in connecting those two communities.
Final question.
The fall one is.
Yeah, go ahead. The fall one. Go ahead. No, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. Fall one is working title.
Is working title. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. The final question is the nuts and bolts. Is that with Assembly Bill 5, it's expensive to do theater, and I'm just wondering what kind of fiscal support you have for this, and where your funding comes from, and how you can afford to keep going as a collective, as a company.
I'm really good at stocks. That's where right now where it comes from.
And I work very hard.
Yeah, and so we
personally fund the projects. We made a pilot that we funded, which won awards as well. Like the rewards that we get, both award and review wise, and also more importantly, like the rewards we get from our audience members and being able to see people connect, is so worth it to us that we are willing to fund it ourselves right now. But now that we are officially nonprofit, we are looking to get some grants, which would be extremely helpful to us, because we have an extremely dedicated company.
How large is the company? Is your pool of, by your pool of actors and designers and directors?
We have our company members, which is a very small group, and we are 50% civilian, 50% veteran, which is an important dynamic for us to have, so that all voices are equal on both sides of the spectrum. So we have very small actual company members, as in, a creative director. Matthew and I are artistic directors. We have Joseph King, who's a veteran, who's our production stage manager.
Yeah, I think our pool is about like 30 to 35 people.
In terms of like the overall extension of it. But all these people, it's all commitment based, and they are very dedicated, and we are extremely grateful to them for all the work that they have done.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's really addicting doing these projects, because
I feel like you're doing something.
Well, I mean, how many times can I do 12 Angry Men and hope that my audience understood, do you understand like these people and the things that were said? And then when we do one of our shows and we have veterans coming up to us, like I've had veterans tell me after a show, I thought about committing suicide, but I came to your show instead, and now I'm going to go to the VA. I saw your show, and I feel like it's finally now time for me to go talk to somebody or talk to my family about it.
We had a civilian come up to us and said, my grandfather was very abusive to me. I've hated him my whole life. I've seen your show now, and I'm starting to kind of understand a little bit more why he was the way he was.
The cycles of
it. It's incredible.
And when you get those kinds of responses, it's just like, I mean, why would I not want to fund this kind of work.
Now, grants
yeah.
would be helpful, and
Grants
they
would
do
be
accept
helpful.
donations as well. But yeah, the rewards are definitely worth it.
The foxholetheatercompany.org, correct?
FoxholeTheaterCompany.com.
Yeah.
So
Foxhole
for more information, go to foxholetheatercompany.com. Katherine and Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having us.
In 2 weeks, we're joined by the Dean of Cal Arts in Valencia, Travis Preston.